So give me your best road story.
My best road story. Well, if by best you mean craziest, wackiest thing that happened, I was in a band one time and we played this gig at this place in McKinney, and the cool thing about the venue there was that the hotel that you stayed in was literally next door. So there's no driving after the gig, and everybody kind of takes that as a license to have a few extra or whatever. And we were having a good time, but we'd been on the road for a while at that point. We had some issues that were just kind of, everything was kind of in the dumps a little bit, and everybody was a little upset with everybody else. When you're in a van with, 6 guys for 3 years, and especially musicians, we don't talk about our problems. That's just not a thing we do, and so we let stuff build up. And in the police report about the incident, it said argument began over comment on penis size. Which it did.
Go back. What?
Argument began over comment on penis size.
Okay, yeah.
Because the bass player told the merch guy that he had a little and that's a thing that happens. So they got in like a kind of a push and fight, and then it got into more like of a serious fight. And then the harp player who was friends with the merch guy comes in, and the bass player had sat in his seat or something the week before, and so he was already kind of on edge with the guy. So our harp player goes in and starts just pummeling bass player in the face. And he's hitting him pretty hard, and then before he knows it, bass player stabs him twice in the chest, and ambulance comes, and they're like, "You guys look familiar," and we're like, please don't be fans at this juncture.
Right.
Like they were fans, and that was cool. We were big in Texas at the time. It was a bad deal. It was a bad time. We had a little lineup change after that, you know?
Right.
Things have to change in that situation, but man, it's being in a band and being on the road and playing my songs for people is the coolest thing that I've got to do over my lifetime. So that's what I always wanted to do. It's what I'm doing now.
In these days of waiting patience, I refuse to wait my turn.
I met up with Bryon White in Stillwater, Oklahoma. He's the co-frontman of the occasionally defunct Damn Quails and an accomplished singer-songwriter in his own right. I grabbed a few beers at Joe's, sat with him, listened to him talk about coming up in our mutual hometown of Shawnee. Bryon's got a well of stories that he's lived and scars that he's earned, a wit that comes quick and a journey chock full of wins and losses. And you don't got to interview him so much as just try and keep up.
This place is kind of red dirt holy ground or whatever. Bob Childers lived out here, and Skinner spent time out here. All the younger dudes that were looking up to the older guys, McClure and Bolin and Cody, they all spent time out here one time or another a little bit, and everybody kind of did their songwriting here, and they hashed their ideas out, and they would, after the bars had closed, they'd come out here and just do some jamming and picking, and that was the spontaneity of that, and just playing songs you'd never heard before. It's one of my favorite things about music, making music, being thrown in the fire and having to rise to that occasion and figure out what's gonna happen before it happens and try to predict people's minds and where they're gonna go. And there's something about that telepathic component of it that I find really appealing, and it's just a joy to make music with people when you don't have to worry about anything that they're gonna play, because you know they're good enough to play with you or whatever. And like, if I trust somebody enough to play music with them, that's about as high as it gets in my book.
So do you, and obviously they're very different experiences, but what do you get from performing that you don't get from songwriting, and then vice versa? Well, how do they feed you separately?
Well, it's a symbiotic relationship. You don't have one really without the other unless you're playing cover songs or karaoke, and it's a kind of a raw end of the stick sometimes for the songwriter, because you have to go, you go through stuff, and you have times are good sometimes, and sometimes times are not so good. And it's in those times that really most songwriters thrive because that's when you have to explain how you're feeling on the inside to somebody or nobody, depending on how you write. It gives you a way to explain or understand what you're going through or what you've been through. But at the same time, if you're doing it and you're playing in a band and playing on stage and you work that into a set, that song becomes a popular thing, then you experience that hurt over and over every night. And that's okay, and it doesn't hurt as bad down the road through the years, but it always hurts a little. And so that's kind of, it's a weird trade-off, but the songwriting is a way that you express the world, and trying to get people to hear it. And so you toe a fine line between what's good and bad, or what's campy and what's sweet and what's just not. And like, it's a hard line to find, but I feel like I'm doing pretty good at it so far.
Are you a better writer? Are you more creative? Are you more compelled to create when things aren't going good for you?
Yeah.
I know that I am, because when I'm happy, I'm busy living. When I'm sad, I'm busy writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, it's sad, but it's true. But it's one of those things, you can experience that and still be in an okay place, I would like to think, But it does seem to get the most out of me, as far as like, the stuff that hurts the worst is the stuff that you have to find a way to let out of you somehow. And if you can do that with a song that does you good in the end or whatever, then why not?
But there's peace in the valley, I'm king of the hill. While you run and your rat race, I'm standing still.
He's talented and eccentric and funny. He writes songs with dense lyrics, words speeding past.
So say ye whatever ye will.
Brings a zealousness to his conversations, gregarious and passionate. Bryon talks fast and laughs loud. He's one of those cats who manages to be the same person, waiting for the crew to lock down their camera angles, as he is in the spotlight between action and cut. He's not here to sell anything, and that makes it easy to believe him in an interview and in his songs.
Long since moved on. I ain't slept a wink now, not for weeks since you've gone. Love's ledger long overdrawn.
Started playing guitar when my stepbrother was in the band at Bethel, and he was taking trap set lessons from this lady, and her husband was a Nashville session guitarist in the 70s named Gary Turley that played really, really great guitar and played on like Bandy the Rodeo Clown and some other records. I started doing that, and I got in a punk rock band, and I played in a punk rock band called the Mr. Shannons for several years when I was in high school, and then a little bit after. And then I kind of started moving towards folkier, songs and that kind of singer-songwriter genre.
How old were you when you played your first gig?
My first gig, I was 17 years old, and I played at the Bean & Berry Bistro in Shawnee. Was my first acoustic gig. I played with the band I was in at like a pep assembly at the Shawnee High School. That was technically probably my first gig, but the Bean & Berry was where I first, I played, we're having a grand opening, and the girl that was supposed to sing the Friday, Saturday night spot, I bailed on him Wednesday. And so the guy, he was Gil Guptill, the drama department, Shawnee High School.
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, my friend's opening this place, and he needs somebody that can play for 4 or 5 hours, Friday and Saturday night. Can you do that? And I was like, man, absolutely.
Right.
Yes, I can. That's the thing. You never say no.
Right.
So I skipped Thursday school to learn songs. And because I didn't want to repeat stuff. I didn't want to use lyric sheets on the stand. I didn't use any stand or anything. I wanted to do it. And when I got done, I had $220 in cash. I had 2 joints and two chicks to smoke with. And how do you dissuade somebody from a lifestyle of rock and roll after that?
Right.
When you're 17 and you've got a Dodge pickup that eats gas and hauling around to some construction development and burn one with some chicks you met at the show that you played. What else are you gonna do?
Right.
Well, I'm gonna go be an engineer.
Right.
We were born amidst.
We finished a couple of cold pops and hit the streets off campus, kicked around some laughs, and weighed out our mutual church histories and a couple of love stories. A pastime of Bryon's, axe throwing, because, of course, led us to a joint called the Woodchuck. I didn't expect the man to have a hobby like, puzzles, and he doesn't disappoint. You could almost see that dude shunning society and turning hermit in the woods. Just his axes and his cigarettes and his guitar, maybe some conversations with the trees.
Shawnee, Oklahoma, man, was a really cool place to grow up, kind of. I didn't think so at the time. I think. But I mean, nobody does really. Your hometown is your hometown. But man, there's something about that place I love. I lived there for a long time, and I just always liked the place, man. That's where I grew up. My friends are there. My family's there. The music scene is a very small, close-knit community here in the state. And you know, we go by Red Dirt, but Red Dirt ain't the only genre that's in it. And there's all sorts of little connections. Casper McWade, as he plays now, was called Alan Wade when I knew him back in high school, and he had a band called The Hinge, and we would go to the VFW and watch them play rock and roll music. And that affected me in a real deep way. Bands like the Complimentary Mints, and we were all part of a scene, and we were all friends, and we were all trying to do the same thing, express ourselves and have a good time on a Friday, Saturday night. I feel like I owe it a lot. I played at the Bean and Berry Bistro about once a month or once every 2 months at least for 4 years.
Now, what kind of music were you playing when you started off?
Well, like at the Bean and Berry, mostly, you know, covers of Nirvana and Pearl Jam and whoever, really old stuff, Leonard Cohen.
That's a jump.
Yeah, well, I jump around. My genre choice varies wildly depending on my mood or where I'm at or what I want to remember, and it's a memory trigger for me. Songs will put me right back to a place the first time I heard them or whatever, the ones that affected me the most. And my memory is very much song-based. And when I really started writing my own stuff, Wayne Wedge is the guy that told me the first time to start writing my own music. And he was like, yeah, you play these cover shows or whatever, and that's what it is, but it's not a thing that's sustainable. And so you have to start writing your own stuff at some point. He was the guy that told me to do that, and he played guitar for John Moreland and the Black Gold Band back in the day. And so, man, like, it's just you start out with people and you run around and you run into people, and it's a small scene, and there's a lot of friends that are in it.
Bryon's got a gracious spirit. He's quick to offer credit and praise for his fellow artists and the community that emboldens and supports them. He speaks with a genuine warmth about the people he's met along the way, guys like Tom Skinner, folks who have been on their own chase. The love is mutual. Asked about Bryon, and Mike McClure described him as a force and fearless. Said his heart breaks all over the place, and he paints gorgeous pictures with his words as he goes through it, putting it all back together again.
I'll miss all the good times. I was in high school playing at the Bean and Berry Bistro in Shawnee. I did this weird little gig up there about once a month. And this guy had come to see me there. He'd just been around getting a bagel or something on a Friday night. And the guy approached me, and I didn't recognize him because he was in a monk's habit. Order of St. Benedict monks wear the black habits. And so it's a serious habit. I mean, I saw the Omen or whatever. And the guy's name was Brother Damian Wayland, and I was like, have you seen that? He's like, yes, I've seen the Omen. He was the choir director at St. Gregory's, and so he wanted me to come and try out, and so I went to try out for the choir. I brought a guitar, and I was like, I don't know any really, like, I don't know, America the Beautiful or whatever, and he was like, just play me something. So I played the Needle in the Damage Done, the Neil Young song. And he walked to his closet when I got done playing it, didn't say a word. And like, they kind of look like they hover in those things. So it's just real surreal in the choir room at St. Greg's. And he kind of hovers over to the closet, and he comes back with a copy of Harvest on vinyl. And he was into music, man. And so he got me on a scholarship there. And I sang a Gregorian chant for 2 semesters. And it was where I really learned how to sing, and where you learn how to breathe, and it's just, you use your diaphragm instead of just talking at your throat or whatever. But I grew up in the Church of Christ, and so not having instruments, and so people are singing, and you just naturally start to gravitate towards those harmony parts and toward finding out which part's yours.
You were raised in the Church of Christ?
Yeah, I was.
How do you think that's affected you as a musician or songwriter?
Man, it works its way into your songs, and whether you intend it to or not, just the language, the way that, the first book you read was the Bible or whatever, and the things that were in there, the way that it was written, and the way that they spoke these and thous and stuff like that. And I have a few of those peppered in my stuff. And so it kind of comes out. I got a song called The Sun's Going Down on My Anger, and that's a biblical concept, and things like that. And they're not religious songs by any means, but it's just that makes a mark on you. And in your formative years, that's That's a thing that is a big part of your life, if not the biggest. I just happen to be really good at singing harmonies because of that, because that's what you had to do. And like me and my sister kind of have the same take on it. Like that's where we learned to sing, was in church. I saw guys like Ellis Paul and Don Conoscenti, Tom Skinner, and Bob Childers would just come up, and these guys could command a room with nothing but the words that they had to say and the way they were saying them. Yeah. And that was a cool thing for me. And I was going to school for entertainment business and arts management at OCU for several years, and played music kind of to put myself through school or whatever, but also just because I can't not play it, and I like playing it in front of people, and that's just kind of one common theme that's always been there. And so I started the Damn Quails after I got laid off from an engineering job. I graduated college, and I was doing this engineering job that I was really good at. I was good at the computer side of it, but I hated every minute of my life at work. And it was just not, and I was spending nights going out and playing jams with guys like Bob Moore and Buffalo Rogers, and that was what I wanted to be doing. And so I just spent my nights trying to perfect, my craft and my art, and trying to get the way I was saying things down to the way I wanted it. That you hear this thing in your head, and then you try to communicate it the best you can and get it from your brain out into the world. And that's what I wanted to do. And I got laid off, and I was unemployed for a little while, and I just would go out every night, play music. I was playing 4 nights a week with Gabe Marshall, that I ended up starting the Damn Quails with. We were playing the Deli every Monday night, and we had a couple of weekly gigs, and we'd play every weekend, and we just played all the time. And we did that, and we made our record with Mike McClure down in Ada at the Boo Hatch, and made a really, really great record that went a long way for us. We've got fans all over the world from the old Down the Hatch days. And the song that I wrote, Fool's Gold, and reached a lot of people and touched a lot of people, and it means something different to everybody else. So it's kind of nice to hear what people think that song's about, or what they want to put of themselves in it. And that's the true hallmark of a good song, is interpretability, and being able to put yourself in those words, no matter what they're about.
Well, the truest test of a man's good name is acceptance of failure and losing a game with a smile and a handshake, quiet ever-building rage.
Later that night, we made our way out to the legendary birthplace of red dirt music in Stillwater, the Farm. A mecca for musicians and hanger-outers, has-beens, made-its, and never-wases. A place to song swap and jam and co-write and learn about music. Maybe make some memories, maybe make some mistakes. It's less a structure than a place, really. The actual farmhouse burned down, but the stories remain, and the ghosts. We sat in the refurbished concert stage there on the property, and Bryon played some songs. Would have been easy to stick around that bonfire and howl at the moon, listen to him play to the wee hours. You've got a new album coming out?
Yeah.
Tell me about that process.
I was gonna do a self-titled album, because it's really more me than anything I've done ever. Like it feels like me, it sounds like me, because it's stuff that I've been, had knocking around my brain for 10 years or more sometimes. And some of them are newer than that, but a lot of them have at least some bit and piece from a long time ago. And that's how songs work for me, is I'll get one part and find a place to put it eventually, and like you kind of live life and have experiences, and then you get to, use those to become a better writer. And I think through the years, you have to be going in one direction or the other. There's no real standing still. So you have to try to get better at it.
What's the difference between like having your own like singular album versus
not really,
the Damn Quails?
Not probably as much as you'd think. It's the thing we did was recorded it live in 4 days with a group of guys that had never played together in a live situation, and we put them in a really great studio, Cardinal Song, in OKC, that my friend Mike Trepanier has, and he engineered the record, and my friend John Calvin Abney produced it. And I went in and played the songs through 3 times with the band, and we were isolated on the headphones, and I played them and sang them, and those were the takes that we took. And I didn't go back and re-record any of the vocals or anything. Everything was done right there. And so my parts were done in like 2 days. It's a really cool record, and I'm excited to have it out, because I haven't had a solo record in 18 years. And the guy that did my first record is the same guy that did this one. And so it's a cool record. It sounds really good. And it's definitely me. I'm going to put it in Terrabang after my name, which is a punctuation that went out of style kind of in the 70s. It was a combination between a question mark and an exclamation point. So it's just going to be like, Bryon White?
Well, my columnist friend looks like a Mississippi Jesus with his trousers held up by his belt of navy blue.
You obviously had a very long, colorful career.
Yeah.
Is there a moment that stands out to you as a pinnacle or a peak so far? Obviously, you're still going, and you're going to have many, many more.
Right,
But is there a
right.
moment that stands out to you that, like, I'm where I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be, and how I'm supposed to be?
There's a lot of them, and mostly they're shows and performances. But the last couple of times that we played Billy Bob's, and we played a couple of shows in there with a 9-piece and 8-piece band with the Quails, and those were particular just romper stomper gigs. And like that's the kind of thing that you come off of, like, just you have to wind down from that because it was just that much adrenaline and that much connection with other people. And some, like, we had a couple of guys that have been, both of which have been playing with us for years that had never met. And so that was like them getting to play together and getting those pieces of the puzzle at the same time makes it a different thing. And like that's what I really get off on the most, I think, about shows and being in that performance vein is like, I don't care who's in front of me. Like it's, as long as there's a person or two or somebody to give back that vibe or whatever, it's worth it for me. So.
It's awesome.
Yeah, man. And the Gypsy Cafe out here is kind of representative of that songwriter bond. And like everybody has, likes to hang out. We don't all get to hang out that much because everybody's got their own gig, Everybody's trying to find a place to play. And so when you have a festival or you got just a group of people get together, play songs, hang out, like that's a cool thing. Should be appreciated because, man, those things are way less than they used to be.
Can't be the way that it is. Oh, Lord, Lord, this just can't be the way that it ends. But it is. If there's peace in the valley, I'm king. Of the hill,
Stabbing aside,
Sure.
what do you love about traveling with a band? What do you like about
Oh,
it?
man, being in a new town every day, waking up somewhere new, and maybe not even getting to spend that much time in the place, but getting to spend time with the people, and the 90 minutes on stage every night is what you do the whole thing for. That's the high that you can never recreate and that you can't escape. The longing for is that high, and you get to literally communicate with other people with your mind, and it's your waves line up and lightning strikes, and you play moments that you can't ever recreate in front of people that get to see it for the one time that it ever happens in this world. And that's something cool about that I've always loved.
Well, I carry this curse.
There's an edge to Bryon White, and a quirkiness too. It would be a shame if he bothered to hide it, so it's kind of a blessing that he doesn't. He's got a darkness in his eyes, maybe the things he doesn't say. And he's complicated enough to write songs that keep you guessing. And his voice, his singing, warm and affecting, has an occasional near Irish brogue and clarity that drops a kind of heartache that feels timeless and above reproach. He doesn't mumble his pain or his romance. He bleeds it out like a front pew sinner, drunk and at war with himself, hurling words cutting deeper than those axes that he throws.
I had pawned a good TV the day it came to be. Everything worth having is one day worth giving up. And to make it all make sense will cause some great offense to the being in the sky that gets a pick who lives or dies or shook it off. And went out for a walk, thought to breathe the evening air and let the darkness still my heart. Somewhere beyond the rise, a billion pairs of eyes all peered at me with pity under cover of the night. But everything is fine, everything is fine. Glory, glory, hallelujah, tell you everything is fine. There is no pounding in my chest, the beat's in perfect time. Everything's fine, everything is fine, everything is fine. I began to gag and choke when the storm had finally broke. Rain fell like an ocean from a black and twisted sky. And with each and every drop I prayed it would not stop, so I could find a sweet release and maybe finally rest in peace. I was denied. Everyone had lied when they told me that the end would surely someday come in sight. I stared till I went blind, until I lost my mind, and I gave into temptation to live life looking behind. But everything is fine. Everything is fine. Glory, glory, hallelujah, tell you everything is fine. There is no noose around my neck, there is no jagged line. Everything's fine, everything is fine, everything is fine. It takes a stronger man to weigh the pros and cons. And users use and losers lose the thrones that they get buried on. And it takes a stronger man to weigh the pros and cons. And users use and losers lose the thrones that they get buried on. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Glory, glory, hallelujah, tell you everything is fine. There is no barrel in my mouth, we're going back this time. Everything's fine, everything is fine, everything is fine. Lo, everything is fine. Lo, well, everything is, 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 everything is fine.